are at stage 10,
Mhm.
paragraph page 929. Okay, stage
Mhm.
10, 929. And our last headword was discourage. Newer type of
Mhm.
lesson.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's start with revision. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. First question. What do we call the bones that run down the middle of the back? What do we
Mhm.
call the bones that run down the middle of the back? We call the
We
bones
call the
that
bone
run down
that run
the
down
middle of the
the
back,
middle of the
the
back,
spine
the
or
spine
backbone.
or backbone.
Very good. If I told you my height in feet and inches, would you be able to calculate it in meters and centimeters? If I told you my height in feet and inches, would you be able to calculate it in meters and centimeters? Yes or no?
No,
If you told me
if you told
your
me
height
your
in
height
feet and
in
inches,
feet and
I
inches,
wouldn't be
I
able
wouldn't be
to
able
calculate it
to calculate
in
it
meters
in
and
meters
centimeters.
and centimeters.
Very good. What do we mean when we say someone is calculating? What do we mean if we say that someone is calculating? When we say
When we say
someone is
someone
calculating,
is
we
calculating,
mean that
we mean
they
that
plan things.
the same,
They plan things.
the same, the
They
plan
they
same,
they plan
they
things
plan things
very carefully
very
in
carefully
order to get
in order to
what
get
they want
what they want
without caring
without
how
caring
other people
how other
might
people
be affected.
might be affected.
Well, what's the difference between a canal and a river? What's the difference between a canal and a river? The difference between
The difference
a
between
canal
a
and a river
canal and a
is
river
that a canal
is that a
is
canal
man-made,
is man-made,
whereas a river
whereas a
is
river
natural.
is natural.
Well, good, why was the Panama Canal built? Why was the Panama Canal built? The Panama Canal
The Panama Canal
was
Bill
built
was built
so that shipping
so that shipping
could pass between
could pass between
the Atlantic
the
Ocean
Atlantic
and
Ocean
the Pacific
and the
Ocean
Pacific Ocean
without having
without
to
having
go around
or go around
the southern coast
the southern coast
of South
of
America.
South America.
Very good. What do we mean when we talk about the capital for starting a business? What do we mean when we talk about the capital for starting a business? When we talk about
When we talk about
capital for
capital
starting a
for
business,
starting a business,
we mean the
we
money
mean the
required
money
at the
required
beginning
at the
in
beginning
order to rent
in
a
order
place,
to rent a place,
furnish it,
furnish it,
pay for advertising,
therefore advertising,
etc.
etc.
Very good. Why do children imitate their parents? Why do children imitate their parents? Children imitate
Children
their
imitate
parents
their parents
because it's a
because
natural
it's
way
a natural
of
way
learning.
of learning,
And children
and
like
children
to pretend
like to
that
pretend
they too
that too
that they too
that they too
are grown-ups.
are grown ups.
Very good. What do young children call adults? What do young children call adults? Young children
Young children
call adults
call adults
grown-ups.
grown ups.
Very good. Do you think it's right that certain people should be allowed to possess immense personal wealth? Do you think it's right that certain people should be allowed to possess immense personal wealth? Yes or no?
No,
I don't think
I don't
it's right
think it's right
that certain
that
people
certain
should
people
be allowed
should be
to
allowed
possess
to possess
immense personal wealth.
immense personal wealth.
Very good. What's the greatest joy in your daily life? What's the greatest joy in your daily life? The greatest
The
joy
greatest
of
joy
my daily
of
life
my daily life
is
is taking a bath.
very good. Okay, next. How long does it take somebody to qualify
Mm.
as a doctor in your country? How long does it take for somebody to qualify as a doctor in your country? It takes somebody
It takes somebody
about
about 6 years
to qualify
to
as a
qualify
doctor
as a doctor
in my
in my
country.
country.
Very good. Which animal is sacred in India? Which animal is sacred in India? The
The
cow
cow
is sacred
is sacred
in India.
in India.
Very good. Why did people in the old days make sacrifices to the gods? Why did people in the old days make sacrifices to the gods? People in the
People
old days
in the old days
made
made
sacrifices
sacrifices
to the gods
to the
to
gods
thank them
to feed them
or to make them
or
happy.
to make them happy.
Very good. What's the greatest or what's the biggest sacrifice you've ever made in your life? What's the biggest sacrifice you've ever made in your life? The biggest
The
sacrifice
biggest sacrifice
I've ever made
I've ever
in my
made
life was
in my life was nothing.
nothing at the moment. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Do you always answer emails the instant you receive them? Do you always answer emails the instant you receive them? Yes or no?
No,
I don't
I don't
always answer
always
emails
answer
the
emails
instant
the
I
instant
receive them.
I receive them.
I receive them.
Receive them.
Well, in your opinion, does instant coffee taste as good as fresh coffee? In your opinion, does instant coffee taste as good as fresh coffee? Yes or no?
No,
In my
in
opinion,
my opinion,
instant coffee
instant
doesn't
coffee
taste
doesn't
as
taste
good as
as good
fresh
as
coffee.
fresh coffee.
Very good. Do you believe that every piece of furniture in the house should have a use? Or do you believe that certain piece can be purely ornamental? Do you believe that every piece of furniture in a house should have a use? Or do you believe that certain piece can be purely ornamental? I
Mhm.
believe that
I believe that every piece of
of furniture
furniture
in a house
in the
should
house
have a
should
use,
have a use,
and nothing can
and
be
nothing
purely
can be
ornamental.
purely ornamental
Ornamental.
or ornamentals.
Very good. What's the noun of the adjective pure? What's the noun of the adjective pure? The noun
The
of
noun
the adjective
of the
pure
adjective
is
pure
purity.
is purity.
What? Oh, very good. Are there too many impurities in the tap water in your area for it to be drunk safely? Are there
Mhm.
too many impurities in the tap water in your area for it to be drunk safely? Yes or no?
No,
There aren't
there
too
aren't
many
too
impurities
many
in the
impurities
tap water
in the tap
in my
water
area
in my
for it to
area
be drunk
for it to
safely.
be drunk safely.
Very good. Okay. Do you believe that humans will be able to explore the whole of the universe one day? Do you believe that humans will be able to explore the whole of the universe one day? Yes or no?
Yes, I
Believe
believe
that
that
humans will
humans
be able
will be
to
able
explore
to
the
explore
whole of the
the whole
universe
of the universe
one day.
one day.
Regid, what would you do if you were wrongly accused of a crime? What would you do if you were wrongly accused of a crime? If I were
If I were
wrongly accused
wrongly
of a
accused
crime,
of a crime,
I'd try to get
I'd
a
try
good
to get
lawyer
a good
to
lawyer
defend me.
to defend me.
Wait, what's the distinction between the United Kingdom and Great Britain? What's the distinction between the United Kingdom and Great Britain? The distinction between
The distinction
the
between
United Kingdom
the United Kingdom
and Great Britain
and Great
is that
Britain
the
is
United
that
Kingdom
the United Kingdom
includes Northern
includes
Ireland,
Northern Ireland,
whereas Great Britain
whereas Great
does
Britain
not.
does not.
Very good. Do some countries spend huge amounts of money on defense? Do some countries spend huge amounts of money on defense? Yes, some
Yes,
countries
some countries
spend huge
spend
amounts
huge
of
amounts
money on
of
defense.
money on defense.
Very good. What do we call a person who write poems? What do we call a person who write poems? We call a person
We call a
who
person
write poems
who write a poems
a poet.
a poet.
Very good. What do we mean by supper? What do we mean by supper? By supper,
By
we
supper,
mean the
we
last
mean
meal
the
of the
last
day,
meal of the day,
which could be
which could
either
be
dinner
either
or
dinner
something small
or something
that
small
we eat
that we eat
before going to bed.
before going to bed.
Reggie, do you think it can ever be morally right to tell a lie? Do you think it can ever be morally right to tell a lie? Yes or no?
No,
I don't think
I don't
it
no
can
think
ever
it
be
can ever be
morally right
morally right
to tell a lie.
to tell a lie.
Wait, what's the difference between a permanent job and a temporary job? What's the difference between a permanent job and a temporary job? The difference between
The difference
a
between
permanent job
a permanent
and
job
a
and
temporary
a
job
temporary job
is that a
is
permanent
that
job
the permanent
is
job
one
is
that can
one
last for
that can
years,
last for years,
whereas a
whereas
temporary
a
job
temporary job
only lasts
only lasts
for a short
for a
or
short
limited period.
or limited period.
Very good. What's the difference between permit and permit? What's the difference between permit and permit? The difference between
The difference between
permit and permit
permit and
is
permit
that permit
is that
is a verb,
permit is a verb,
whereas permit
whereas
is a
permit
noun.
is a noun.
Weged, how old must a person be before they're legally permitted to drive a car in your country? How old must a person be before they're legally permitted to drive a car in your country? A person
A
must be
person must be 18 years
old
old
before they're
before
legally
they
permitted
are illegally
to
permitted
drive a car
to drive
in
a
my
car
country.
in my country.
Very good. Do you think that's reasonable? Do you think that's reasonable? Yes or no?
No,
I don't think
I don't
that's
think
reasonable.
that's reasonable.
Is it sometimes necessary to apply for a work permit before one is allowed to work in a foreign country? Is it sometimes necessary to apply for a work permit before one is allowed to work in a foreign country? Yes, it's
Yes,
sometimes
it's
necessary
sometimes
to
necessary
apply
to
for a
apply
work permit
for a work permit
before one is allowed
before one is
to
allowed
work in a
to
foreign
work in
country.
a foreign country.
Very good. When you go on holiday, what kind of scenery do you prefer? When you go on holiday, what kind of scenery do you prefer? When I
Mhm.
go
When
on
I go
holiday,
on a
the
holiday,
kind of
the
scenery
kind of
I
scenery
prefer
I
is
prefer is mount scenery.
very good. Do you think that admission to museums, art galleries, etc. ought to be free and that the government should pay to maintain such places? Do you think that admission to museums, art galleries, etc. ought to be free and that the government should be pay to maintain such places? Yes or no?
Yes,
I think that
I think that
admission to museums,
admission to museum,
art galleries,
art galleries,
etc. ought
etc.
to be free
are to be free,
and that the government
and that the government
should pay to
should
maintain
pay to
such
maintain
places.
such places.
Very good. What was the old sign for a barber shop? What was the old sign for a barber shop? The old sign
The old
for a
sign
barber shop
for a barber
was
shop
a red
was a
and
red
white striped
and white
pole
striped pole
which was hung
which was hung
outside.
outside.
What did the color red represent and why? What did the color red represent and why? The color red
The color red
represented blood
represented blood
because in the old
because
days,
in the old
the
days
barber,
the
apart
barber,
from cutting
apart
hair,
from cutting
also
hair,
used to
also
perform
used to perform
small surgical
small surgical
operations.
operations.
Very good. What do we use elastic band for? What do we use elastic band for? We use
We
elastic
use
bands
elastic band
for wrapping round
for
things
wrapping round things
like banknotes,
like banknotes,
etc.
etc.,
in order to
in
keep
order
them together.
to keep them together.
Very good. Okay, what's the difference in structure between the verbs encourage and discourage? What's the difference in structure between the verbs encourage and discourage? The difference
The difference
in
between
structure
structures
between
between the
encourage and
encourage
discourage
and discourage
is that we
is
encourage
that
someone
we encourage
to do
someone
something,
to do something,
whereas we
whereas we
discourage someone
discourage someone
from doing something.
from doing something.
Very good. If a friend of yours said that they were thinking about traveling around the world alone for a year, would you encourage them to do it or discourage them from doing it? If a friend of yours said that they were thinking about traveling around the world alone for a year, would you encourage them to do it or discourage them from doing it? If a
Mm.
friend of mine
If a friend of mine
said that
said
they were
that
thinking
they
about
were thinking about
traveling around the
traveling
world
around the world
alone for a year,
alone for a year,
right?
I'd encourage them to
To do it.
do it.
Very good. Why should Callan Method students not feel discouraged when they make mistakes in the lesson? Why should Callan Method students not feel discouraged when they make mistakes in the lesson? Callan Method students
Current method
shouldn't feel
students
discouraged
feel
when they
discouraged
make
when they
mistakes
make
in the
mistakes
lesson
in the
because
lesson because
making mistakes
making
is a
mistakes
necessary
is
part
a necessary
of the
part
learning
of
process.
the learning process.
The students
The
learn
students
from
learned
the teachers'
from the teachers'
constant correction
constant
of
correction
their mistakes.
of their mistakes.
Very good. Okay, that's the end of our revision. Very good. Let's
Mhm.
have new word. Okay, so repeat graceful.
Graceful.
Very good. Okay, listen. Graceful is an adjective. It means
Mhm.
moving in a smooth and attractive way. For
Mhm.
example, I think the swan is the most graceful animal in the world.
Mm.
Okay, let's practice. What do you think is the most graceful animal in the world? What do you think is the most graceful animal in the world? I think the
I think the swan
is the most
is the most
graceful animal
graceful
in the world.
animal in the world.
Very good. Next, repeat liberty.
Liberty.
Torch.
Torch.
Very good. Okay, listen. The basic meaning of the word liberty is the freedom of an individual in society.
Mhm.
For example, the Statue of Liberty is at the entrance of New York Harbor, representing
Mhm.
freedom, which was given to America by France.
Mhm.
Torch is a noun. For example, the Statue of Liberty is a huge statue of a woman, and in her
Mhm.
right hand she holds a torch.
Mhm.
Let's practice. What's the basic meaning of the word liberty? What's the basic meaning of the word liberty? The basic
Mhm.
meaning
The
of
basic
the
meanings
word
of
liberty
the word
is the
liberty
freedom
is the
of
freedom
an individual
of an
in
individual
society.
in society.
Where's the Statue of Liberty? Where's the Statue of Liberty? The Statue
The
of
Statue
Liberty
of
is
Liberty
at the entrance
is at the
of
entrance
New York Harbor.
of New York Harbor.
Describe it. Describe it, please. It's a huge statue
It's a huge
of a
statue
woman
of a woman
representing freedom,
representing
which
freedom,
was given to
which was
America
given to
by
America
France.
by France
In her right hand,
in right hand.
in her right hand,
In her right hand,
she holds a
she
torch,
holds a torch,
etc.
etc.
Very good. Why do most people keep a torch and a supply of candles in their home? Why do most people keep a torch and a supply of candles in their home? Most people
Most people
keep a torch
keep a
and a
torch
supply
and a
of
supply
candles in
of
their
candles
homes
in the
in
home
case
in case
there's a failure
there's a failure
in their electricity
in their
supply.
electricity supply.
Very good. Okay, next repeat. Temp,
Temp,
donkey.
donkey.
Very good. Okay, listen. Donkey is a noun. It is an animal that is like a small horse with large ears.
Mm-hmm.
Temp, the word temp is a verb. It means to encourage someone to do or
Mm-hmm.
want to do something, even though it may be wrong, bad, or unwise. For
Mm-hmm.
example, the classic way of tempting a donkey to move is by tying a carrot on a piece of string to the end of a stick
Oh. Mm-hmm.
and hanging the carrot a step away from the donkey's nose so that he is tempted to move. Uh,
Mm.
He is tempted to move forward to eat it. However,
Mm-hmm.
as the stick is fixed to the donkey, the carrot remains out of reach and so the donkey keeps walking. Okay,
Mm.
so let's practice. Do you ever feel tempted to move to another country permanently? Do you ever feel tempted to move to another country permanently? Yes or no?
Oh, yes.
I sometimes
I sometimes
feel tempted
feel
to
tempted
move to
to
another
move
country,
another country
to another country
to another country
permanently.
permanently.
Which country and why? Which country and why?
Hawaii.
Why?
It's so pleasant climate all year.
That's correct. Oh, you're in Hawaii now.
Mm.
Look at that, you're back. It's Hawaii.
Yes.
Okay. Next, what's the classic way of tempting a donkey to move? What's the classic way of tempting a donkey to move? The classic way
The classic
of
way
tempting
of tempting the attempt donkey to
a
move
donkey to move
a donkey to move
is by tying a
is by
carrot
tying
on
the
a piece
carrot
of
on a
string
piece of
to
string
the end of a stick
to the end of the
and
stick
hanging the carrot
and hanging
a
a
step
carrot
away
a step
from the
away
donkey's
from
nose
the donkey's
so
nose,
that he
so
is
that
tempted to
he
move
is tempted to
forward
move
to eat it.
forward to eat it.
However,
However,
as the stick is
as the
fixed to the donkey,
stick to the donkey,
the carrot
the
remains
carrot
out of
remains
reach,
out of
and
reach,
so the donkey
and so the
keeps
donkey
walking.
keeps walking.
Very good. Okay, so now let's
Oh,
move on to reading.
okay,
Okay, so our reading is at stage 8, paragraph page 638. Okay, and
wait.
our last headword was event, eventful, uneventful. Okay,
Okay.
start with the third question. What
Mhm.
type of sport event do you like to watch most?
Okay. What type of sports event do you like to watch most? I like to watch most